Are you interested in purchasing a home? Matt Van Voris here. I'm a licensed realtor in the state of Minnesota. I am here to talk to you about the inspection contingency. The first 3 steps we talked about was 1, getting pre-approved, 2, setting up your home search, 3, submitting an offer. Now 4, we're going to talk about the inspection. And this is point where you get a house under contract and you have an inspection contingency. You're probably watching this as 2022. It is not common to get an inspection, but in a normal market, let's talk like it is, and we do get an inspection. And so the inspection contingency is the period of time that you have to hire somebody to go and look at the home and make sure that everything looks good structurally, all the appliances are working, all the electricity in the home, meaning the outlets work well, the lights are flipping on, all that. You can inspect the windows, the roof, the chimney. You can hire a structural engineer to come out. Basically anything you want to do to make sure that the home is structurally there and looks good. Really the only thing you can't do is what's called intrusive inspection. And that's meaning where you can cut holes in walls and look to see what's on the inside. Most sellers won't allow you to do that. And for good reason. Then they got to repair it and it's money out of their pocket. So it makes sense. Now, you can choose the amount of days that you want for your inspection contingency. In a normal market, about 7 days is pretty standard. In this market, if you're lucky enough to get an inspection, you're looking at 3 days, probably max. I've done even a 1-day inspection. And basically the things that you're gonna wanna do is obviously your general inspection, a radon test here in Minnesota because we have radon levels and we have basements. And then the third thing is a sewer scope, which I think is really important because sewers can get expensive. Now, we get this inspection contingency, we have this time period. That time period ends on whatever that last day is at midnight. So if you have a 7-day period, it starts the day after the purchase agreement was signed, and then it would end on that 7th day at midnight. You need to have everything negotiated that you would like fixed, repaired, anything you want the seller to do that needs to be negotiated in that time period. When you negotiate that, then you put it into what's called an amendment, a change of the purchase agreement that you would submit to the sellers, and if they agree to it, they'll sign it, and then it becomes legally binding. When you decide on things that you potentially want the sellers to adjust or fix, they're not going to do everything. They're generally going to do things that are health concerns. For instance, in the state of Minnesota, you need to have a properly functioning furnace to get approved for a loan. So that's something they would have to address. Water heater, the same thing. If you go into the home and you're like, I want them to add a new fridge because the fridge is old, they're likely not going to do that. So you need to be reasonable with what you ask. You're going to get an inspection report back, and it's going to be very long and detailed, and there's going to be a lot of things on there that the inspector is going to probably recommend you address. That's pretty typical. There's a lot of homes that, especially around the cities, that were built in the 50s or earlier, sometimes maybe even a little bit later. They just aren't code to what it is today. And so some of those things you're just going to have to look at, figure out, okay, what's a deal breaker for you, what's not a deal breaker for you, and then kind of narrow it down and come up with a list that you potentially want the sellers to do. If you have any other questions about inspections, put them down in the comments below. Again, thank you so much for joining me. If you're interested in appraisals, that's the next step of the process, and I think it's one of the most important steps, especially in today's current market. So we'll see you next week.